Hi, this is Adam Anderson, owner of WealthGuard Advisors.
Hello, I'm Blake. Welcome to our weekly podcast.
Before we get started, I just want to remind you about our disclosures that you should read them. We may or may not have interest in buying or selling the stocks we are talking about today. Past performance is not indicative of future results, so do your homework and before making any decisions. Today, we want to talk about the big picture, the stock market. We had a big action on Friday. The market sold off on Donald Trump, being more aggressive in our tariffs against China because they've taken some aggressive stance against rare earth minerals. It's become a big deal. Blake, you want to talk to anything about this? I'll bring up a chart.
Yeah, so it's definitely a big news there, getting into more trade concerns with China again. It does seem like some of that's already let off since Friday, and so we're seeing a little bit of a recovery in the market. So we'll see what goes forward from here. But I do think it was a little bit of an overreaction on sort of like preliminary news there. But there's some things that are very much in the target of those discussions, and that would be rare earth metals.
And we want to talk about precious metals and rare earth metals in our individual stock segment that we're going to do at the end here. So stay tuned for that. But before we move on off the stock market, because this is a big deal, what happened on Friday. So here was the sell off. We had a 2.5% or something like that sell off on the S&P 500 is what I'm looking at here. And it came down and it sat right here at the 50-day moving average. So we found support at that level, and today we get a bounce off of it. What we look for in selling, and we've been kind of cautious throughout the last month and a half just because we've gone up so much. So we've been rebalancing portfolios, taking profits in places, but we're still fully invested. Obviously, we don't know when things like this are going to happen, but what we're watching for is a follow through sell off day. So if in the next few days we see another high volume, see the volume on this sell off day, that might be indicative of a market shift. And that's where we become even more defensive in our posture on our investments. So that's something that we're looking at. So we're definitely a little more cautious, looking for a potential follow through day on the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ or any of the major indexes. So before we go on, one of the things on the S&P, we are buying a little bit, and that would be things that are not related to China, not related to imports and tariffs, and that would be financials. So we're seeing earnings coming out on financials this week. I think Goldman Sachs is tomorrow, JP Morgan's later this week or tomorrow or the next day, Citibank. A lot of the financials are all reporting earnings. They are also benefiting from this lighter regulation from the current administration. And I'm kind of predicting they've all kind of pulled back a little bit. I'm kind of predicting it might be a good place, a safer place for money right now. So that's one of my ideas just on S&P 500 broad market stuff. Anything you want to add before we go on to our stock picks of the week, day?
Yeah, it's important to note that when we see big sell-offs like we do, like we saw on Friday, oftentimes other securities that aren't directly impacted by whatever the news cycle is will also be drawn in. A lot of that is just due to funds out there having to manage their overall positions, where people will sell a fund of stocks and stocks that aren't necessarily affected will be included. So there are always opportunities when big sell-offs like Friday happen for potential to make money on a recovery as money gets reallocated the following day, the following week, things like that.
Yeah, the tide's going out, so to speak, and they say rising tide lifts all boats. Also, a waning tide drops all boats, and so there's definitely stuff that, as sometimes we say, the baby's getting thrown out with the bathwater, so to speak. So there's opportunities there. So let's talk about maybe some big news items or things that have been happening, and that's rare earth metals or precious metals. So I want to start with precious metals and we'll get into the rare earth stuff. But if you own so I want to start with precious metals and we'll get into the rare earth stuff. But if you've owned let's see here. Sorry about that. SLV, which is silver, I want to talk about because this is one I bought more than gold. What happens is we'll have clients that'll come to us and they'll want us to buy gold or silver. We have not been, big silver gold people. To our chagrin, admittedly, we could have done much better in that. But one of my concerns about owning precious metals is there's no balance sheets, there's no earnings or projected growth on it. It just has to do with sentiment. So this is the last 6 months, just give you an idea, and we're up 54%. So um, that's silver. Gold has a similar chart, up a lot, high volume right now. So if you had bought, now I bought silver for a client about a year ago who really wanted me to own silver. And I went and bought that. But I also bought a company for him, AVAV, which we talked about on a previous mini podcast that we did a few weeks ago. And you can look at the returns here. That's 159% return. So yes, silver is up. It's beating the S&P 500 handily this year. It's up 50%. But a high quality company could actually do better and have balance sheets, earnings, and projected growth. So anything you want to add to that, Blake?
Yeah, I just note with things like gold and silver, people often perceive it as an inflation hedge, and that doesn't historically tend to be the case. If you look on, shorter time frames, 1, 5, 10-year time frames, it doesn't seem to do that. For example, with gold over the last 5 years, we saw really high inflation in the United States during 2022, coming out of COVID. We saw a lot of inflation. Gold did not go up in 2022. It wasn't until the following year, and really even a little bit into the middle of 2023, that we started to see the growth in gold. And so it's more of like a fear gauge than an actual inflation gauge in these precious metals. And so that's something to keep in mind. And we saw this especially with gold from coming out of the Great Recession. Gold was really strong in 2008, 2009, 2010. But after that, gold was basically flat for 10 years. And we didn't see gold start coming up again until COVID and then again in 2023. So you basically spent 10, 11, 12 years where gold did nothing. And I think we'll see that again moving forward. It's something you should expect being a long-term gold holder.
Yeah, so I just brought up the 15-year chart, weekly chart for gold, and I'm going back from 2011 to 2022. As you can see here, I mean, there's 11 years of basically a zero return to flat return. So it is, buyer beware. Yes, you can make money on the trades, but this parabolic move that we're seeing with gold right now, and maybe there's countries out there that are like hoarding gold is one of the things that is moving this. We could see a big move, but how much more is in gold? Hard to say. There's nothing really driving it other than market sentiment. So it's hard to say how much higher it could go. But so if you hold gold right now, congratulations. If you own silver, congratulations. Uh, let's segue into more precious metals, more rare earth metals. And I really wanted to talk about, we've been in and out of a company called Mountain Pass for actually a couple of years now, probably. And it has tested our patience in the past because we really were in it back when nothing was happening with this, wanting to have a U.S. producer of rare earths, so magnet materials, nickel, palladium, cobalt, etc. And it was a pretty rough ride. But now that we've come into this uh, conflict with China, trade war with China over rare earths, and the demand for rare earths domestically, Mountain Pass being one of the leaders in that area, has taken off like a rocket. As you can see today, it's up 23%. This has been pretty astronomical in a very short period of time. This is 146 days. That's 350% gain on this position here. Anything you want to talk about Mountain Pass, Blake?
Yeah, obviously Mountain Pass is big in the news. It's had a few very strong days. We've been watching it for a while and just recently started to see results in it. I would note that this whole sector is still pretty nascent and highly volatile. We see a lot of companies that are just having massive, single day returns up 20, 30% in a day. And they're all very speculative. You'll notice that they're not making money. Mountain Pass is actually one of the better ones in that regard, where they're more established. They come from a more traditional mining background. and we're early adopters trying to transition over to these rare earth metals and making use of them. But yeah, basically none of these companies are making money. And that's always a bit of a red flag and something to be careful of when investing in these new technologies, that a lot of these companies are probably going to fail.
Yeah, we've talked about earnings, and what an important part is. I grew up after the dot-com bubble, and so earnings means something to me because I was there when the companies were just failing because people were investing in things with no earnings, and it was ridiculous multiples that they were trading at. So yes, I have scar tissue related to that issue. So I'm always a little cautious about stuff that does not have earnings in it. But Mountain Pass, the demand for the rare earth minerals obviously fuels our technology, our defense, so many things is really moving. So this would be a little bit trains left the station. We have clients that have been in this for quite a while. We're super happy for them and the success they have. Not, but mostly those are more speculative clients, or they're open to more speculative trading that are in that. But we have looked at another company that we felt like we've also traded this for a while, and that is Albemarle. Blake, you want to talk about Albemarle? If I'm saying their name right, a symbol
Yeah,
ALB.
Albemarle. This is another mining company. They come from more traditional industrial mining practices. They're breaking into implementing the processes for refining rare earth metals. One of the things we like about the sector generally, but also Albemarle specifically, is that we're seeing a lightening on the regulatory load. One of the reasons we don't do a lot of rare earth refining processing in the United States is because there's a lot of environmental impacts that come along with it. And so previously, it was a lot of regulatory restrictions on and costs involved with processing those, and we were fine with letting China, handle all those externalities. But now that we're having trade issues with China and we're being more friendly towards rare earth mining from a regulatory standpoint, a company like Albemarle could take advantage of that. And we don't see the rapid run up that we've seen in some other names like Mountain Pass, MP Materials, and other speculative names out there that you might be aware of.
Yeah, I feel like this also has it's a more diversified company. Like they're getting into the rare earth mining space, but that's not their wheelhouse. They're a chemical company with lots of different things that they're working on. So as a more conservative way to play the rare earths opportunity out there, this might be one that is a little bit more cautionary. They did have positive earnings. They beat their expectations on earnings, even though they had negative earnings. It was not as bad as they. That was not good. Let's look at this one. That was so they estimated losing 62 cents. They only lost 18 cents. The last quarter, they estimated losing 70 cents. And they made 11 cents. So their earnings is growing, and a very diversified model as far as their business model goes. And looking at their chart here, we have seen just a steady. This is something if you followed us and we talk about stock charts, and we've had lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. But here we have the trend changed here, where we have a higher low, a higher high, higher low, and we're moving into a higher high. We're actually starting to break above these support levels, and we have some potential up signs of upward movement on this. So something to think about. Thank you for listening. Blake, do you want to round us up and close this down?
Yeah, here at WealthGuard Advisors, we're a registered investment advisory firm registered directly with the SEC. And part of that is we have a fiduciary responsibility to our clients. And we take that seriously and wanting to do what's best for them, whether that's custom investment management or competent financial planning and helping you make the best decisions with your wealth. So we look forward to talking with you. We're open to free consultations and hope to see you next time.
Thank you for watching. Have a great day.